Oh. What up, what up, what up, everyone? It's Monday, so you know what time it is. It's time for
More You Know
Mondays. Man, we suck at that. All right.
God, we are horrible.
We are. Let's do an intro. All right. Man, how are you doing, Jeff?
Oh, good, man. Had some family in town, so I had that going on. Did some other auctions on Sunday, so I kicked them out and said, listen, I need to do something here. I need to do some comic stuff here. But otherwise, it was great, from Thursday to actually just a few hours ago. That's why we're a little bit late today, so I apologize. Matthew, hey, thank you for showing up, buddy, and had to move some times around, but I appreciate you hanging out here, learning some Superman stuff today. But man, you've been busy at all the cons, man.
Yeah. I'm doing the big summer tour. So I've had a lot. Yeah, I've had a lot of people reach out to me. Like, hey, I'm going to be at such and such con. Are you going to be there and stuff? So, yeah.
Be honest. They're not saying that. They're saying, hey, when are you bringing your cats out?
When are you bringing the cats out? Yeah, it's official. The cats are more popular than I am. But, so yeah, I'm just doing the kind of the summer tour. I did a video a couple weeks ago of some cons I had planned. Some things are getting added to the schedule. I'm probably going to go to San Antonio now to a con. I've been invited over there by one of the members of the community to come and hang out. I've also been invited to a con over in Louisiana now by some fans here in the community. Hey, Jokers, what's up?
What's up, Joker?
Jokers,
so that could be your next T-shirt. It's going to be the Shelby tour, and you have the different cities going back, like a rock T-shirt.
Shelby Summer Tour. And then I've got 2 more trips up to Dallas planned. So, yeah, it's looking like about probably 6 or so cons I'm going to try and do.
Nice.
6 cons in 3 months. So
I still haven't been to one yet this year.
Oh my God!
I know. Almost went to one, but my Jeep broke down. So
we were just talking about something going on in Tennessee. I told you my other friend Jeff. His brother lives in Memphis, I believe. And so he travels up there about once a year, so he knows about the whole comic scene and stuff up there. So, yeah, I don't know what's wrong with you.
You think Nashville, the biggest city here, you think they would have stuff, but nothing's going on right now, and I haven't heard anything. Everything's been happening around us, like outside states, but not in Tennessee.
Huh. Okay.
I mean, I know in a couple months there is, but like nothing that's happened yet.
All right. Well, cool. All right, so tonight we're going to talk about Superman and a little bit of history. Maybe you haven't heard all of. I was thinking of King Kong in September, I think it was. I don't know where King Kong is.
Yeah, where is King Kong?
Yeah, y'all gonna have to help me out on some of these names because I'm old and I'm forgetful. I've been taking ginkgo for about a week now, and it's not working yet. So, but I am trying.
It takes a while. It's not like a pharmaceutical drug. It takes some time.
Yeah, it's gonna take a while. So, yeah, people throw these things at me. I'm sorry. You're gonna have to send me a link. You're gonna have to Skull Island. That's funny. Yeah, King Kong. He's on Skull Island. Yeah, or the Isle of Monsters. All right. Anyway, we're gonna talk. Hey, welcome everybody. I know some other people will be joining us because they always do. They always find us some way, somehow, and we appreciate it. We're going to talk a little bit about Superman, the history of Siegel and Schuster, probably some things you did not know.
Maybe.
But we brought in a special guest tonight, someone that it self-proclaimed Superman aficionado.
A
He's my buddy.
DC aficionado. If you follow us and you watch Lobber,
aficionado.
you know who we're talking about.
Yeah. So he's my buddy. He's Jeff's buddy. He's the Thunder, and we're gonna bring him in. Thunder God. Oh,
What up? What up?
How
Well,
are you
John
doing?
made a junior action.
How are you doing tonight, sir?
Yeah, good. Good.
Okay, I love the excitement.
All right, he's pumped. He's excited to be here. He's excited to be on More You Know Mondays, dropping some Superman knowledge here.
It is the well. What is it? Is it the More You Know dome, or what type of dome are you in?
There's only one dome. It's a Thunderdome, so we
That's
can't
right.
compare to the
Okay.
dome.
Yeah.
So it's the More You Know Monday on the road from the Thunderdome.
Sure.
Sure.
I want to say that. Why not? Why not? We're on the road in the Thunderdome.
All right, there you go.
All right, guys. Hey, so oh, yeah.
Matthew's got it.
Yeah, Matthew's got it. So, all right. So, let's see what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and jump into it unless we got anything, any updates or anything. I can't think of anything on my side.
No, let's jump into it, man. We got the Thunder God here. He's going to drop some knowledge. He's going to swear and have some cookies. So let's go.
There you go. All right. So I'm going to share my little presentation. All right. So a little story of Superman, Siegel, and Schuster. So this is a topic I'd actually talked to Jeff about probably, I know it's before we started.
Yeah.
Or right when we first started. And I had gone back and forth whether to do it or not. And actually I talked to some people at the con last weekend. They actually asked, like, what do we have coming up on More You Know Monday? And it's only two people, so don't get too excited. But they said they may not catch us all the time. They do watch the rewind, which is true. Usually we get about 60, 70 watches on the rewind. So people are viewing us. But I told them, I said, I had this idea about Superman and Siegel and Schuster. I said, just not sure if I want to do it. And they're like, no, please do that. So I typed it up this weekend after I got back from the con. And yeah, so let's talk a little bit about it.
Let's jump right in.
Yeah. So a little origin. Everything's got to start an origin story, doesn't it? So I'm not going to read through every certain thing, but the highlights, people on the rewind can view us in high def and read everything they'd like to. But Siegel and Schuster were both Jewish immigrants, and I'm pointing that out not to be any certain way. It's just I feel like their Jewish heritage, along with a lot of other creators like Jack Kirby and others, were influenced by their Jewish heritage. In a lot of ways.
It's because they came over to America during that time.
Well, I think
during that time it wasn't accepted, so they used what was happening to influence a lot of what they were doing.
Hey, Captain Beardo. Yeah, I think also it was this idea of this superhero. They saw a lot of what was going on over in Germany. With the rise of Hitler. And so this idea of something fighting for truth and justice, I felt was a direct reflection. Hey, Shutter Duck.
What's up, Shutter?
A direct reflection of what was going on during that time.
Right. Well, part of it too, Schuster was actually from Toronto, so he immigrated over here. So like you said, they've got this immigration as alien. They're aliens, and this unique perspective looking at, like you said, they're also their heritage as well. So they're immigrants. They're different. They're outsiders than a lot of other people, and I think that had a lot to do that as well. Like Thunder is saying, that influenced a lot.
They found each other because they weren't accepted that well.
Yeah.
When they were being raised in Cleveland, Ohio. they weren't being accepted.
Right. So I think a lot of people probably know this little part of the history. I don't think it's I think it's fairly well known. They were friends in high school. They published a small fanzine. They created a villain entitled Superman. A lot of people have seen that art with like the bald headed, almost Lex Luthor type,
Lex Luthor guy,
hovering over the city. And that was based a lot on the work of Nietzsche, Friedrich Nietzsche, in which he talks about the Superman archetype in philosophy. It would later be changed to a hero type based on a lot of pulp heroes of the time, like Tarzan, and of course some biblical influences like Solomon. They tried for years to get into newspaper strips. And one thing I want to point out is comics was a very young medium at this time. Newspaper strips was where it was at. And people that had really popular, like MYKM, that were doing newspaper strips could make as much as $1,000 a week, which in today's money is $20,000. So about $20,000 a week through syndication of their creations in newspapers. They moved to New York. They had lived there about 5 years and was turned down. They did work for Detective Comics, which later became DC, and they were under a contract for $10 a page, which was about $200 in today's money. So, and you could do several pages in a week, right? So they're not making a bad living if you look at it. If you could do 4 or 5 pages a week, then each of them were making about $400 or $500 a week in 1937, 36, 37, 38. And that's not bad money. It's really not bad money today. Think about it. If you make about $500 a week. And go ahead, Thunder, if you got something to say. We can barely hear you, too. Maybe your mic is leaned down along with your camera.
Well, I was just going to say that's when you said the 400 or 500 a week nowadays. That's actually pretty small. Back in their time, yeah, that was pretty good. But nowadays, that's tough.
That's Thunderdome money right there.
Thunderdome money. So just kind of set the scene a little bit. DC had turned down Superman at least twice before they finally agreed to publish it in 1938. Oops. All right, so the infamous deal. So DC had started a book called Detective Comics. That's where they got their name from. Detective Comics, of course, is famous for Batman. In Detective Comics number, what number?
Are you talking to me?
Anybody.
Oh, I thought you were talking about to the group. To the chat.
Anybody. What was the first appearance of Batman? Detective
27.
Comics number?
27.
So, but Detective Comics as a book actually began before Action Comics number 1. And that's right. That was the actual first series they worked on. They had art in, and I'll show some art here in a minute. They had actually had some art stories in Detective Comics number 1. So they were under a contract where they were artist writers for hire there at DC. They knew that DC was going to publish this new book called Action Comics. They went to Max Gaines, the editor at that time, and I don't want to say begged. I don't know what the whole situation was, but after the third time, he said he would publish Superman. It was in a newspaper strip format. He asked if they could rearrange it to a comic book format, and they would get paid their regular rate. And so they went home, they sliced up, and actually there's a good video I saw just a couple of weeks ago where they took the individual panels from Action Comics #1 and actually showed the original newspaper strip arrangement for them and where some panels were missing and stuff. Right. Because so you could see in one panel like this happening, and then in another panel, like one of the it was the wife beater in the Action Comics story. In one panel, he has a shirt on, and in the next panel, his sleeves are ripped off. And that's because there's some panels missing in between because they rearranged the newspaper strip to match a comic book format.
Wow.
So there are some actual panels missing from the original art in order to have the story. And then you can tell where they added just little bylines and stuff just to make the story flow in a comic book format.
Well, I mean, it was a little wonky to begin with too. I mean, because if you kind of read it, it's really like 3 separate stories, and and it's all over the place.
It is. It's kind of all over the place. I agree with you. So they were paid their normal rate. This is where the $130, right? So the infamous, they sold Superman for $130. No, they came back to DC with 13 pages, and they were paid their normal rate of $10 a page. And here is a copy of the check. And if you actually look in the byline of the check, you can see that they weren't just paid for Superman, which that's the first line. It says Superman, $130, but they were also paid for their other work they had done during that month or whatever, right? Which there was some work done for More Fun Comics and New Adventure Comics. And it shows the page rate in which they're paid for those. So the check is actually for $412, with 130 of that being for the 13 pages of Superman. All right, contracts and lawsuits. So the story you may not know about Superman, his creators, and DC Comics. All right. In 1937, Siegel and Shuster signed an employment contract with Detective Comics. They had the right of refusal to any comic material produced for the next 2 years, and they had a pay rate of $10 per page. So here's the actual wording from the contract that says, they'll work for 2 years, commencing December 4th, 1937, ending December 3rd, 1939. Now, Action Comics was clearly published in 1938. They would be paid the sum of $10 per page, and it's understood that any new or additional features which the employees produce for use in a comic magazine are first to be submitted to the employer, who has the right of refusal to accept or reject within a period of 60 days. This is actually the story from Detective Comics #1 they had done, a character called Sam Bradley. So that is the actual contract that they were working under when they produced Superman. Now, in January 1938, DC offered to publish Superman. They had given up on newspapers and agreed to sell Superman Detective Comics. They produced 13 pages. In late February, then in March, they signed a new contract releasing the copyright of Superman to Detective Comics. So it says here, the author performed the work for the strip entitled Superman, given in consideration of $130, which was their $10 per pay rate. I highlighted the main part here. It says, to you and your assigns to have and hold forever and be your exclusive property. So that basically right there is what gave DC Comics Superman, was they signed this contract giving up the rights to Superman for the page rate that was under their other contract. All right. So go ahead. What we got to say?
All right, Thunder, you go first.
Oh, go ahead. I'm listening to Shelby.
No, I mean this is the normal kind of contracts that were done then. It's the normal kind of contracts even done today for people for the music industry, for right now, like influencers and gamers specifically. They get these young people that are coming up. You know, they sign them under these ridiculous contracts saying, "We own your likeness, we own your rights forever." Too bad, and they know, you know, if they get popular, if they get bigger, they're gonna have to go back and renegotiate stuff later, type of thing. But this, and Shelby, correct me wrong, this is the normal kind of contract that was done then. But when they get popular, they know they're going to redo the contract later. That seems to be the normal out of any industry that really capitalizes on young talent.
Yeah. So Matthew Fox asked, what was the first series they worked on? If I'm not mistaken, I think it was. Oh, did they do some stuff for Kniff, or was it The Spy? Tell me if I'm close, Matthew, because it was a newspaper strip, if I'm not mistaken.
Was The Spy? And was that after their fanzine that they did? Or was their fanzine?
Oh yeah. This is after they moved to New York. So they worked on?
They made like what 3-4. They made several issues, and they got some big name people to actually do some of their stuff in the fanzine, didn't they? The magazine.
You may be thinking of when they set up their studio afterwards.
Maybe.
Hey, comics artist pro secrets.
Jeff, you're right. I mean, that's what people did. The big honchos, they took those. They seen somebody that were young, struggling for money at the time, and it was just a typical contract. Didn't make it right, because nowadays you're not going to get something like that because there's too many other people that's going to say, you know what, let my lawyers let me, look at it. But
no, that's the thing. They still have these contracts today.
You can, but there's always going to be something in there, like you said, where you can come back and negotiate. And here, there's nothing like that. They just sold it, and they thought they lost all the rights to it, which they did until years later, which I'm sure Uncle Shelby will get to.
Yeah, a modern a modern thing would be like the Winter Soldier. The Winter Soldier was created by Ed Brubaker. And do you know that he has not been given any credit in a movie? He's not been given any extra money for the 6 movies he's been in, for the TV show, for merchandising, nothing.
Well, I can update you on that real quick if you do want just a little side story.
Sure.
Yeah.
Ed Brubaker, and I can't remember the exact amount of what it was, but we all know how much Disney and Marvel has made off Winter Soldier since it's become popular.
Right.
And this actually comes from a very reliable source. They sent him what they wanted to do, a one-time payout check to say, okay, here, thanks. They haven't used his name. But the story goes with that. Brubaker so pissed off and felt so lowballed on that shit. He ripped that damn thing up, mailed it right back to them, basically a big fuck you, and did not take any sort of money for it. It was something so substantially low that Marvel wanted to give to Brubaker, he wouldn't even take it. There you go. There's another more if you want to research Brubaker.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I said, this stuff still goes on today.
Yeah.
But Brubaker's done so much in that time frame. It's not something he really needed, but it was such a small amount, of course, according to what they're making and what they've made off his creation. Like, I can't remember. This was some time ago. I heard this from a guy who he's owned a comic shop for the last 35 years. Even when there was times in them 90s when shops were shutting down left and right, he's found a way to keep his going all this time. And he's kind of pretty tied into stuff that happens. And it came from him. So
Yeah.
They tried to lowball Brubaker. Yeah, apparently he tore it up and sent it back to him.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm sure the story's not done. I'm sure he's putting together a lawsuit and they're still going to go on. So I'm sure eventually at some point in time, something will get worked out here.
Yeah. And that is the impetus for Todd McFarlane to create this Spawn universe. He's bringing in creators saying, hey, you can create and own and if you will, put it into the Spawn universe and you'll have the extra whatever, right, that Spawn brings with it to maybe push your creation a little further. So that's what the Spawn universe is about. If no one, really understood what Todd's trying to do there. All right. So this is what we were talking about, popularity of Superman. So Superman was immediate success. And of course, Siegel and Schuster had regrets, FOMO or whatever. But what DC did is in September, so this is only a few months after the release. Action Comics number 1 was released in June. So in September, they came to Siegel and Schuster and said, we will give you a 10-year contract. In that contract, they kept the same right of refusal for 6 weeks of anything new created with, it was a 5-year contract with a 5-year option, which Siegel and Schuster took the 5-year option. They could have chosen not to, but they chose to take it. So in December of 1939, they signed a contract which increased their pay rate to $20 per page, but they also got 5% of net proceeds from any commercial exploitation of Superman beyond magazines, books, and newspapers. So in that 10-year period from 1938 to 1947, it's estimated that through royalties and their normal pay, they were paid around $400,000. In today's money, that is $7.7 million. So split between two people, that's whatever, 3.7 something. Over a 10-year period. I don't know about y'all, but that doesn't sound like someone that got lowballed. I'm just saying it the way I see it, and please, I'd love to hear a discussion on this,
Well, I mean, it's in the contract.
I still think it's a lowball. Sorry, Jeff.
I don't know. I don't know the numbers. So, I mean, if we had a number of here's what, DC Comics made total and here's what they get. But like in today's world, this is set up as a licensing deal. This is the exact same percentage that we do right now. I mean, this is obviously my real job that I do. I do this stuff. and 5% net is the typical licensing. So you create something and you license it outside your normal world, like Superman candy and Superman movies, stuff like that, you get 5% net. That's what they do straight now. So, I mean, it's not like anything different back then than they do right now. It's still done today. Now, as far as everything else they get paid, I don't know that, if that's lowballed or not. But I can tell you from a licensing side, that 5% net is exactly what we do now.
Well, and so I see what Matthew is commenting here.
The whole, this is what it would equal nowadays, but to only get $200,000 essentially is what they got. I don't know. I guess at the time it was okay for them, but when you look back on what they could have got, it just seems it's weird to think about how it's like that, considering I want to say it's Schuster was having a hard time at one point finding places to stay, and he was having to stay with family, and so it's like,
or after he left and everything, yeah,
and we'll talk a little bit about that here in a moment. But all I'm saying is, we acknowledge that they signed over their rights to Superman. Okay, period. They signed over their rights. B, DC came back to them, I feel like in good faith, and said, and this is only 2 to 3 months after Super Action Comics #1 was released, and said, look, we want to give you a 10-year contract, and this is what we're going to pay you. And it's, it doesn't matter. It does not matter what, they made or anything like that. Hey, Marcella, welcome. None of that matters. It's, to me, DC came in good faith and said, look, we're going to give you this 5% licensing, which is going to be worth a lot of money, because you have signed away your rights, period. Right. And it was a 5-year contract. They could have chosen not to sign the 5-year option, but they did it again. Right. They then signed a second and third contract. So this is now like the third or fourth contract they've now signed, right? So at some point, I mean, they're doing this of their own volition is what I'm kind of getting at here. And I'm not saying anything's right or wrong or anything like that. I'm just pointing out the facts.
Right. You're pointing out the facts on it. And like I said, with the 5% royalty, that's with people who are companies who actually own the property. So they're making a lot more money besides, obviously, these guys aren't. They're only getting their page rate and then 5%. So they're not making a lot of the other money too on top of this. So that's caveat there. And they didn't know. They like most people who are young and creating something, like you said, it was only a couple months after Action Comics #1 came out. They don't know if it was going to be great for a year and it's going to tank and it's a fad, and they had no idea it was going to blow up. So you can't blame them for signing this and saying, okay, yeah, give me the guarantee. I want the guarantee. We got people that are starving right here. We want money. We don't know when this is going to, fade away.
Yeah, wasn't that almost around Depression time too?
It is during Depression, and it's during wartime.
Mm-hmm.
And Siegel and Schuster, and I try to find more information on this, but what Siegel and Schuster did is they ended up moving back to Cleveland and starting their own studio. And they hired a lot of popular artists to ghost write and ghost draw for them, because they were very, very popular, very, very in demand. They were doing multiple books, writing and artist duties. And I'm going to put it towards the studios of like Will Eisner and the studio of Jack Kirby and Joe Simon. These studios ended up going out of business in the late 1940s, early 1950s, due in part to, the Comics Code Authority and the congressional hearings and things like that. So I would not be surprised that this was maybe a bad business deal for them to form their own studios, to pay employees out of their own pockets, to have a staff of people, and then eventually it go under, because a lot of studios went under during that time, and companies. We've talked about that. It went from 130 something companies down to 30 companies in the late 40s due to the Comics Code Authority and the congressional hearings and stuff. So right. I'm not surprised they probably lost their ass.
It's probably where they lost a lot of that $200,000 that they gave them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it all went to that. I mean, there was a time in between there too. I mean, they were still working, or at least Schuster was still working there. Siegel was actually in the Army. He was in Hawaii or something like that for a while. And so he was still working, and then the magic wasn't there, I guess. So that's when things were like, you know what?
And here is that story. So in 1938, Siegel actually proposed to Detective Comics the idea of Superboy, or Superman's childhood adventures. It was turned down. In 1940, 2 years later, Siegel pitched the idea again and came with complete script. But DC did not meet the contractual obligations of that 6-week period. In 1943 to 1946, Siegel served in the Army, and he was in Hawaii. During this time, Schuster ran the studio in Cleveland. They had many ghostwriters and artists continue Superman. And even though Siegel was in the Army and not working, and Schuster wasn't actually doing the art, DC still paid them. So a lot of comic companies really stepped up to help people that went off to the war effort. So even though Siegel was not producing any work for 3 years, he still got paid as if he were. So, you know, I'm just saying, I mean, that's just, you can take that however you want to take it, but I mean, I feel like DC did a lot of things properly. Let me maybe put it like that. In 1944, while Siegel was in the Army, Detective Comics did publish a Superboy story in More Fun Comics 101 that was partially based on the script submitted by Siegel. This was illustrated by Schuster. Okay, so it's not like they didn't know, right? Schuster didn't know that was Siegel's work. He actually did the art. And then by a letter, he contacted Siegel and told him about it. So,
it's happening, Matthew.
That's interesting, but still don't make me a fan of DC. I understand with buddy.
No, not yet, because it's when we get to the 40s of what, like you said, they had that 10-year contract up to 47. It's after that 10-year contract and what they started doing to these two guys, that's where it gets really downhill.
Yeah.
All right, so let's look at that. All right, the lawsuit. So in 1947, Siegel and Schuster sued National Comics Publication, which is DC, for both the rights to Superman and Superboy. The case was overseen by Judge J. Addison Young. So, argument one, Siegel and Schuster argued that in the contract in which they sold Superman, Detective Comics should be voided because it lacked sufficient consideration for Siegel and Schuster. The judge ruled that the $130 mentioned in the contract was not payment for copyright, but for wages of the 13 pages of Superman stories they made for Action Comics 1. So the judge concluded that the consideration that Siegel and Schuster had effectively bargained for was simply to see Superman published. The plaintiff's desire to see Superman in print and realization of that desire by Detective Comics' acceptance of the strip for publication and actually publishing it were the most vital elements in consideration for supporting the instrument date of March 1st, 1938. So this is that first contract. Well, this is actually the second contract. Their first contract was in 1936, in which they said they'd work for a page rate of $10 a page. The second contract was the rights to Superman. The judge, I'm fighting it like kryptonite, Shutter. All right, so the judge has now ruled for Siegel and Schuster, and they said, okay, based on that 1938 contract, you were actually doing that for the $130, not the rights. So right now, the judge is saying they did not sign over their rights with that 1938 contract. Okay, contract number 2.
Yeah.
Siegel and Schuster also argued that the 1938 contract lacked mutuality, saying that at the time, Superman was an idea not fully developed, and thus there was no clear concept to what had being sold. The judge disagreed and concluded that the strips that appeared in Action Comics were based on a fully developed concept that Siegel and Schuster submitted before 38. Remember, Siegel and Schuster had gone to DC 2 other times and many newspapers, and it was turned down. Okay? We understand that, right? It was
Okay.
turned down twice by DC and turned down by many, many other newspapers. So the fact stands that the first Superman release had been delivered for publication prior to March 1938, which it was. And it fully contained a delineated character, Superman, though the story or continuity might vary from time to time. It did constitute a formula for continuing the series to come, in my opinion, was assignable and was purchased by the defendant. So then the judge says that based on the other contracts signed, they did release their rights to Superman. So, yes, part of the contract was that first contract is you got paid for your page rate, but not for the rights of Superman. But you had other contracts that were signed afterward that clearly defined Superman as the rights of national publication.
Right.
Okay. So, thus, on April 12th, 1948, Young declared Superman belonged to National. It's not over. What about Superboy? National argued that Superboy was work for hire, but Siegel and Schuster was able to prove that they did not accept the submission within the 6-week period. Thus, on April 12, 1948, Young ruled that Siegel was the originator and sole owner of Superboy and ordered National to account for the proceeds it made from Superboy and to cease publishing Superboy immediately. At this point, Siegel and Schuster settled out of court. National paid $94,000 or about $1.8 million to the rights to both Superman and Superboy. So this is now somewhere around contract number 5 or 6 that Siegel and Schuster got paid again and have clearly signed over rights to these characters. So this is an out-of-court settlement, which is, like I said, is worth about $1.8 million a day, where they clearly gave over the rights to Superman and Superboy. And, yeah, y'all, I mean, anything you want to say or something? I mean, I'm just bringing over the facts. So,
Thunder, go for it.
Right. They did, like I said, but people needed what their money was. I don't know if I agree with Shelby saying this amount is what this amount would be, because, I mean, we don't know what they were spending or whatnot. So to say that amount equaled this amount nowadays, but stuff costs less. But as far as contracts, that was, I mean, yeah, they were being paid. Like I said, none of this stuff is, I think, where DC was doing them really wrong. It was, I guess, after this stuff, and the.
Well, DC had no obligation to do anything after this. I mean, money was paid, contracts was signed, rights were given over. DC has no obligation to anything.
I understand that, but being on the side of when you say they don't have the obligation, but where is it to where you at least sit there and go, man, we probably could have went, because let's face it, if they wouldn't have had this character, National or DC, at a certain point, they probably go under.
Oh, of course.
This character kept them afloat. So at what point do you say, you know what? We really should give the creators of this character, at least a percentage of every time, if we're going to use it.
Yeah.
I mean, that still goes a little bit later in what I'm sure you got there. That's why I didn't want to get, because at this point, I mean, it went to the court and they made their deals, and it is what it was.
Yeah.
You can't really argue that they were paying for them, and they were paid fairly decent for the time.
Yeah. So, in a way, they kind of paid twice, right? If you want to look at it like that. Some people say that maybe the 1.8 was mainly for Superboy because they had already.
Well, yeah, the 1.8 was
the court had already said that National owned Superman, so the 1.8 could probably be more for Superboy. But I'm sure there was a clause in there that said, we're not going to dispute this anymore. Right? So in essence, it's for both characters.
All right. I mean, up until this point, DC, I think we all agree. I mean, DC's trying to do the right thing. They're renegotiating contracts.
Yeah, I agree.
That's right. We're talking just at this point right here. We're talking about. I think DC is doing the right thing.
Like I said, I can't remember, and Shelby probably has it on there. There's another guy that when he took over, like the ownership of DC and the main publisher, after the guy who first made all these purchases, after he left or passed or something like that, this other guy is the one who I think then started taking it down that dark path, which
I think I'm not going to disagree that maybe DC had a bad taste in their mouth because of them causing lawsuits, right? I mean, come on, DC also is in a lawsuit around this time with Fawcett for Captain Marvel, which DC also won. So I haven't seen anything, but I'm willing to bet, and I agree with you, is that DC's like, you know what? Fuck those two guys. They put us through enough problems. We're not giving them or acknowledging them one bit now that we've had to go through this. And I'm sure that was the attitude.
Yeah, you're probably right. They're probably like Matthew said, we paid them twice now for all this stuff. It is ours. We're done with it. We don't want to hear from them anymore. We own everything outright. It's locked up. Let's move on.
Yeah. Now, I didn't get into these details. I'm going to talk a little bit about it. There's only 2 slides left. Siegel did try a lot of other characters that did not do well. Schuster fell on health issues. So the Legacy, both had little success in the years following. Characters did not last. Schuster developed an eye condition. He actually was blind at the time of his death. It was reported that by 1960s, both men were broke. And it was also reported in 1970s that is either Siegel or Schuster. I couldn't find which one was arrested in New York City for sleeping on a park bench.
That would be the artist.
That was Schuster then. I thought it was Schuster, then I second guessed myself. So
it was Schuster because, like I said, Siegel by this time, he actually had a family. He may have even had grandkids. I know he had some kids. And it was Schuster who never settled down, never had a family or anything like that.
That is correct. Yeah, you are correct.
Schuster was even, like you said, at this point when they were so down, he was sleeping on a cot.
Yeah, you're right. You're 100% right. It was Schuster. Things did get around. Neil Adams, Jerry Robinson actually gave money to both, helping them. I think even Schuster moved in with Jerry Robinson and lived with him for a while. We do know the story. We've talked about it in one of the More You Know Mondays, that with the Comic Defense Fund, that Neil Adams and Jerry Robinson was big proponents of better treatment for comic creators in general. Near the release of Superman the movie, in order to avoid bad press, Warner Brothers did agree to give Siegel and Shuster a yearly stipend plus all medical benefits, and credit their names to all future Superman stories in exchange for no longer contesting the ownership of Superman. So now this is contract number 7 or 8 that they have signed that said we will not contest ownership of Superman. Initially in 1978, the stipend was $20K, but it rose over the years. So you'll actually see things misprinted where people say, "Oh, they was only given $20,000 a year." No, it's $20,000 a year to begin with, but then it rose over the years, and it was near something like $100,000 per year about the time of their death. So they were getting paid fairly well for their remaining 15 to 20 years alive.
I don't even know if it was that long because I don't think Schuster got it to the 90s.
Well, here we go. So Schuster died July 30th, 1992. His sister, Jean Peavy, and brother Frank Schuster signed an agreement with DC Comics to regrant. I think I misspelled something here. All rights in exchange for a $20,000
So
annual stipend.
Right.
So they are still getting paid today $25,000 a year for the rights to Superman.
Like I said, because with the Schuster side of it, they were just fine getting that. They were ready to just be done with this whole deal.
Yeah.
Although even after Siegel's death, his family still went to court again.
Yeah, and that's what this next part is. Now, Siegel, being the actual creator, when he died January 28th, 1996, his estate was passed to his wife, Joanne, who was the inspiration for Lois Lane, if no one knew that, his son Michael, and daughter Laura. At some point, Siegel's estate ended up getting 50% of Superman. So at the time of his death, DC owned 50% and the Siegel estate owned 50%. In October 1916, 2001, Warner made an offer to buy that 50% of about $3 million and an annual stipend of $500,000 and 6% royalty of Superman and 100% royalty of his publications, and they all get full medical benefits. The Siegels accepted this offer October 19th. So this is like now contract number 8 or 9 that has been signed where the rights are, we won't dispute that. However, many lawsuits did continue. They said that the lawyer acted in bad faith for the Siegels. They did try to go back to court, and they had another court appeal that failed in 2010. So they said that DC does completely own Superman. Now, some parts of Superman will become public domain in 2033, 35 years after the publication of Action Comics #1. So,
all right. That it?
A little bit longer one, but I think I don't know. I found it a very interesting story. I did not know all the different contracts. I did not know all the chances. I mean, how many times can you sign away your rights and then take the company back to court? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I mean,
the big thing, I think, and I hate to even say this, but it's when you hear about all the other companies that Siegel and Schuster created and what they were trying to do, because they were trying to recreate that magic. They were creating other characters. Like I said, they started a bunch of business, started multiple magazines. I mean, they were trying to do a lot. I mean, they blew through all the money they kept getting.
Yeah.
So, I hate to say they may be bad business people, but if at some point in time one of those other comics took off or they did something else really good, and they didn't have the money problems, I don't think anyone would be ever talking about any of this stuff, because we all know now how they fell in hard times because they had no money, and they were Superman, they had no money. But if they were
I don't
successful
know if
business,
it was bad decision making. It was a sign of the times. They were trying and trying, but it's not like places was succeeding all over the place in the 40s and the 50s, and especially when they're trying to do it and they're probably trying to make comic characters. And at the whole time, you have the comic authorities and all their things getting in there. So it's
right.
just,
But that's part of it being a business. You're looking around, you're seeing everything failing. You don't then go ahead and start a company and start hiring people.
Their whole life doing. I can see them continue trying at least until they can't do it anymore.
Well, that's what they did. They kept trying, and it sounds like that's what burned through all that money they had. They kept trying all the stuff.
It did.
Hey, T-Pain, how are you?
T-Pain, what's up?
So really quick, let me explain what public domain. So there's a law that states anything over 100 years old becomes public domain. So Superman was created, it's estimated somewhere around 1933. Well, we'll kind of use that year, right? Because they had shopped Superman around for 5 years, which was 1933 to 1938 before it was published in Action Comics #1.
And wouldn't the public domain be the first time we actually seen them?
Yes. So that public domain part will be only for the 1938 version of Superman. It is already declared that Superman was revamped in the 1940s to be more modern. Then he is revamped again in the 1960s in the Silver Age. So this is only for that not flying, prototype Superman of the 1938. Also would go along with that is Lois Lane and the Fortress of Solitude. Those were also introduced during that 1938 time period. Now, just like Mickey Mouse, which is over 100 years old, Disney was able to successfully petition that it did not go into the public domain because, they have a whole company built upon it. So will Superman ever really go into public domain? Probably not.
No.
Will maybe a prototype? Who knows? Who knows?
Well, and also, will people be sitting around talking about comics by 2038 anyways?
Who knows? So
2033 Thunderdome, baby.
That's right. 2033, we're publishing Superman. But I liken it to like H.P. Lovecraft. H.P. Lovecraft work always become public domain. That's why anybody can produce works for Cthulhu. Because Lovecraft has no living heirs, nor were there any company that clearly had the rights to Lovecraft's work, right? Because remember, all of his work were published in pulps, never in novels by a company. There was Arkham House that had the rights for a little bit. That was then taken over when Arkham House went out in the 1980s. But now Lovecraft and Cthulhu and Nyarlathotep and all that stuff is public domain. Anybody can put out anything for Cthulhu. And you see it out there too, right? See everything from toys to plushies to, macrame.
So at the end of the day, then, we're talking about this. Like you said, they've signed over the state have signed over the rights 8, 9, 10 times now and got paid each time they did it. So obviously they're happy for it. Okay, you pay us this amount. We won't contest anymore. That's great. And then they go back and go, well, we could have got more. At one point in time, do you kind of say, oh, okay, yes, DC's fighting it. Yes, DC was kind of a dick about a lot of this stuff because they're getting sued constantly when they clearly say, look, you signed this.
I agree with you halfway, Jeff.
Right. That's all I'm trying to talk about. What part here?
That, how to put it, that they did do the contracts at a certain point where you go, hey, this is, when's enough suing is enough.
Right.
But the whole thing was an unfortunate sign of its times, which I think all this stuff that Uncle Shelby read to us of the Superman and the lawyers and everything like that, I think that's really what his shape was what our modern writers and artists are able to do now. I don't if it wasn't for all these things.
Well, see, that's where I disagree, because look what's still happening. I mean, look what happened to Image Comics. Why they even started? I mean, they weren't getting rights, and Frank Miller left, and when he went to Dark Horse, I mean, all these people still keep leaving because they don't get the rights. And this happened way after all this stuff.
That was the major two. That's what I'm saying. They didn't have. There wasn't enough outlet. Like if Superman was somebody who just now got created, and somebody wanted to say, "Oh, we're only going to pay you this much, but you're going to give us all the rights because we're DC." People, they got that to the major two. They could have looked at this and been like, "Well, no, I don't want to give you all the rights nowadays because I want to take Superman to Boom, or I want to take Superman to where the creator does have it." There's more options out there nowadays, and because of the sign of the times, these guys were like, "Okay, yeah, I guess we'll take what we could get." And then, Big Brother corporate making all kinds of stuff. As a creator, you're sitting back there going, "Holy shit, they're getting a lot of money off my creation. I'm going back and going, hey, I want some more of that cheese that you got. Wow. You're a big fat rat. Now I'm a skinnier rat, and I want some of that fucking cheese."
Yeah, I'm just not sure if we can. Now, I'm not saying that it's not right to vilify some corporations, right? That's the way we like to do it, right? We like to see big corporations as the villain in a lot of these stories. My main thing is I wanted to bring out the other side of the story on this. If we still want to consider DC as the villain, I mean, that's fine too. Some of it may be also just bad choices. Anyway, I don't know. Like I said, that's why we do these shows, is to bring out these discussions.
It's just something that you really have to see, because if Jeff all of a sudden came up with this huge idea that he's writing a story now, and because Jeff's gonna be the next comic genius, but he rose to Marvel, or Marvel's like, okay, yeah, but we're gonna do this and this, and we're only gonna get a little bit out of it. Jeff now has the ability to be like, no, I'm gonna go talk to Dark Horse, or I'm gonna go talk to Boom, or let me go talk to Source Point Press and see if we can't get this in. They didn't have that. So when they were offered these amount of money, which good money, don't get me wrong, I agree, DC was doing their part. I mean, they were giving them money, but from what they were giving them to what they were making off that character, there was a huge discrepancy.
True, but like we said, the corporations are there to make money. For like Matthew's saying, for every Superman, there's 1,000 Funny Man, or the other one, the other character they created. There's
Polka Dot Man.
They pay money. What's that?
Polka Dot Man.
Polka Dot Man. There's Polka Dot Mans. There's the Condiment King.
There's
all these other characters out there.
The Eraser
that they have to pay for. But who knows? I mean, I still think, I can't believe in this day and age there's this kind of stuff still goes on, and it should be like kind of black and white of, you create this character, you're always going to get a piece of it in some way, shape, or form. It was actually kind of cool when I saw the Black Widow movie, and then towards the end of it, I was watching all the.
Have not seen that movie yet.
I'm just talking about the credits rolling by. When you see all the credits rolling by, they have a special section now calling out the creators, all the consultants from the comic book industry they brought in, and it's all former writers, of a lot of the Black Widow stuff, that I thought was really cool. That they're paying them, or at least giving recognition. They're doing something, talking about, hey, we recognize, these guys are a part of this and they're getting paid for it. Conor McKinney is definitely a real thing.
Is a real character.
Well, all I got to say is that when, that big corporation comes and wants to buy more, Monday, I'm screwing Jeff all I can.
I'll be looking for that dagger in the back going, oh.
But I mean, that could be an interesting thing, right? This was originally my idea. I came to Jeff. Jeff came up with the title. We worked together, on developing what it was. We sent emails back and forth, which I have recorded, by the way, saved. So
what the hell's going on here?
So you're Siegel and Jeff Schuster.
But
man, I'm getting screwed over already.
But yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I think it's interesting history. I think it's now we can also take a good story, right? Like Bob Kane. Bob Kane came from.
I was only going to say that.
Bob Kane came from money. Bob Kane came from money, and he was able to have lawyers.
I'm going to after this.
Bob Kane had lawyers to where he did sign over the rights to Batman to DC. DC does own Batman. However, Bob Kane retained the rights to put out and publicize Batman in almost any way he wanted to.
Yep.
Plus, he still he got royalties from anything that was produced with Batman. So he died a very rich man. Now did Bob Kane, whom owned the studio, screw over Bill Finger? Yeah, that wasn't DC there, buddy. Okay. That was Bob Kane having his own studio, just like Siegel and Shuster started theirs, just like Will Eisner, just like Kirby and Simon. It was not uncommon for these people to create their own studios. Same thing in the 1990s. Joe Quesada had his own studio, and they were hired by Marvel to bring in new stories after the bankruptcy. Right? Marvel basically farmed out all their work for about 5 to 8 years to Quesada's studio. Except for a few characters like X-Men, and I think Fantastic Four. But all those Marvel Knights things, that was all Quesada's studio, and really helped bring them the Ultimates. That was Quesada's studio. So,
what was that, Thunder?
No, when he talks about Bill Finger, that's one of those things that really would get to me, because that was Bob Kane just not wanting to share, because that was just pure dick move, because it took 70 years, 75 years. It took something like that before they would actually start putting Bill Finger's name creative. Bob Kane came up with nothing literally but an idea. Bill Finger drew him. He came up with the art design. Bill Finger, he created Batman just as much as Bob Kane goes, hey, let's have a guy call him the Batman, and he looks like this.
Well, I mean, that was Ditko's argument with Spider-Man, right? Was maybe Stan Lee had the idea, just like Bob Kane had the idea for Batman, but who created Spider-Man?
Ditko. I'll say this thing, Ditko. And the worst part about that is Ditko created Spider-Man. I don't know how. I don't know what they were paying him or they weren't paying him. Although he created that, you had a man who was created one of the most iconic characters of all time in Spider-Man, and he dies alone at a little small apartment, and it was passed away for a few days before somebody even finds him. Instead of living a decent life like somebody who created Spider-Man should have.
Well, some of that was Ditko's own stubbornness and ideology. That's my opinion from what I understood.
Wow.
Like his brother even tried to get Ditko to publish things that he could have made money with, but Ditko on his own whatever philosophies decided not to do. Ditko died. His brother's now publishing all this stuff, making a bunch of money. But that's what I'm saying, Matthew. I'm kind of with you, buddy.
No, because you have to have an idea before you have a concept.
Okay, there you go. So then, who's the creator? The idea was
Stan
Stan
Lee
Lee.
alone. So you're saying you came up with all this, and Jeff kind of just came up with a name, but you're the creator.
I
got the dagger in the back to prove it.
So you sure you want to be on here?
I will do an even 70-30 split for you, Jeff. Don't you worry, buddy.
That's it, Thunder. More you know Tuesdays, me and you. Let's do it.
See, there you go.
Don't you worry. I always thank the little guy I stepped on to get where I'm at.
As long as it says hard to come by when you're owned by Disney, Grab that out of my back, Matthew. Just grab it out of there. And
I love it. I love it. This is still the same, something that's just as relevant today as 1938 with the very first.
I still don't have, maybe this could be more, I still don't know the whole, why Marvel felt like they had the rights to Angela to begin with.
Because actually, they only bought it because Neil, I think Neil Gaiman created her.
Right.
I could be wrong on that. But I think Gaiman created her because he was allowed to write a couple Spawn or whatever. And then he really got into it with McFarlane. I want to say what the thing goes. And then he takes his characters and says, you know what? I'm going to sell her. And he just completely sold the character that way, just so out of spite to Todd, he couldn't use Angela anymore.
I always heard the whole thing started with the Marvel suing because they somehow they thought the character looked like something they already created or something like that.
I honestly don't know. To answer Joker's question real quick, so a little part of that history is Jack Kirby actually drew the first Spider-Man, and there's some concept art out there, but he looked really similar to like a Captain America type of character, which Stan Lee didn't like. So then he went to Ditko and asked Ditko to create some concept art. He did like it, and actually the cover of Amazing Fantasy 15 is Jack Kirby. And then took that concept art back to Jack Kirby because he felt like he was a better cover artist. And so, I mean, you could even say almost Kirby had a part ownership in the creation of Spider-Man too,
Kirby should be part owner of every single comic that was done.
It didn't matter if he did it or not. He should be.
Right. He's helped so many people. There's always stories of him helping out. If comics he wasn't even working on, he would help them out and help stuff. And the more I learned about him, the more he really shows that he was the driving force back there.
We were supposed to be a DC show, and like I said, you guys.
It always goes to Marvel.
Always goes back to Marvel. All right.
Let's go ahead, and we need to take this back to DC and Superman.
All right, show your Teen Titans slab. Come on.
I happen to have this sitting right next to me.
I knew it.
And this could be yours, free.
How can they get that for free? That's crazy.
All they have to do
is that Mark Wolfman?
The channel.
That is Mark Wolfman.
The channel gets to 580 subs, which we're 10 away. This wonderful Marv Wolfman sign, who's another legendary creator in this industry, signature series can be yours, free.
Been free.
Yeah, hold on. I'll give you a wrench. Actually, drop something in the chat if you don't already have a wrench. Thunder, I'll give it to you. You can drop your link if you don't mind.
Just type something in there.
Just type something in there. Just say hi or something so I can drop you a wrench and you can.
Well, I haven't been typing anything today.
So do it now.
Well, I'll go search
you
if you want.
Yeah, one of the first More You Know Mondays dedicated to DC. So there you go. In the books. And it is weird when you think about it. DC is actually called Detective Comics.
It is, right? Yeah, I thought the same thing. Hey, I know we only have 13 watching, but there's only 9 likes. Please like the video if you don't mind. Give us a little thumbs up. That always helps us a little bit. And also, if y'all have any ideas for upcoming episodes, we always look at the comments. Please drop your comments down below. Or if you've got anything you want to comment about this episode or anything, hey, please let us know. We always like to hear y'all's input, how we can do something better.
There is.
Well, there we go.
I'm going to report you.
Thumbs up.
I think that was spam. We need to report that.
Yeah, I'm going to report you.
DC fan in there.
All right, you should have a wrench. You can drop your link if you want to, Thunder.
All right. Yes, I know we went a little bit longer than normal, but this was an interesting discussion for sure. And I think this is going to lead to a lot more, actually, because the next show, obviously, we're going to be doing on my channel is going to be the start of Image Comics, which talks a lot about the same stuff. So this is going to be one that I think we keep going back to. I'm down for an Angela show. I'll actually probably put some information maybe about that. I don't know how long, because we're trying to keep the show shorter. So I've already got a decent amount of information in there, so we'll see. But otherwise, yeah, maybe one of those small shows is just an Angela one would be kind of cool.
Yeah. We also have some plans for, we're going to talk about maybe pedigree comics. That's something that I have on my agenda. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head, but I know we got still a ton of ideas that we haven't gone through.
Yeah, we got a few of them.
So, one thing I am, maybe a short show we can put together is this something I found at the show last weekend that I collect.
Is that LSD? What is that?
Yeah, is that acid? Or?
Is that acid? Yeah.
These are mini comics. Marvel wanted to be in the Guinness Book of World Record for producing the smallest comic book. So they produced these in the late 60s, early 70s, and they're the size of a postage stamp. And they were given out in gumball machines. So they're very rare. You can tell how they would be lost very easily. And I was able to pick up a few of these at the show last weekend. Oh. So I have about 6 now in my collection.
That'd be so cool if you sent that to CGC.
Mini comics. Yeah, I know. He said CGC. I have a big ass slab with one little. This guy was able to get a small collection of them, and he actually had these Mylars specially created for them. Yeah. It's actually, that's part of the criteria is it has to tell a whole story. So each page in here, and you don't want to open it up because it has just one little seal of glue on the side. The other 2 I have are actually split in half, but it has to tell a whole story. So each page is actually a little bitty panel. But yeah, you can see the copyright and all that on the back. So, but yeah, the size of a postage stamp, the smallest comic book ever produced, a mini comic.
Like you said, when we end up dying and they go through our stuff,
I know.
Like, oh my God, these guys did more.
They'll never find this. They'll never find this.
They must have a fortune full of stuff they've been collecting for so long. It's all just going to be oddball, weird stuff that we like. They're like, it's not worth anything.
These actually worth a little bit. I mean, I got them at a pretty good price. Normally, they're around $100 to $120.
Wow, really?
So yeah, when you find them, so yeah.
I got a concept for a show for you.
What you got?
You need to do a More You Know. Unless you already did it, because I don't normally watch, but I'm not around to watch.
Still good.
I like that. I'm normally not here. that's what. But then you started later, because Jeff had to do family things. But you should do one. A more you know on how to protect and preserve your comics. Have you done one?
We have not.
We told people to put them between your mattresses.
No,
or under the couch cushion. Either one, perfect.
This could be yours.
That's a nice one. That's a nice one.
That is a nice one. I can't see what it is, though. Here, let me make you big, Thunder.
That's what she said.
And then she said it didn't work.
No, it worked. This could be yours for free.
Oh, that is cool. That's a cool cover. Oh, that's neat. Yeah, you showed that one last week.
All yours if the sub is right.
All right, so y'all go sub up. He dropped his link. Y'all be sure and go sub up Thunder God when he gets to. I think he said 580. So y'all be sure to check him out. On Thursday, Thunder God auction starting at 8:30 Central Time.
All right, guys. This has been a great show. I know we got to wrap it up here. We got an early start tomorrow.
So, hello, everybody that came in a little late. James Howard, Ben Compton. Be sure and check us out on the Rewind. We had a great conversation about the history of Superman and Siegel and Schuster. Y'all be sure and like if y'all haven't had a chance. You can be sure and catch me. Usually I'm with Thunder God on Thursdays. Saturdays I'm with Gorilla Todd. And Tuesday, usually I try to do Tuesday, Thursday, but definitely on Tuesday, 8 o'clock Central Standard Time is Whatnot show. So, Jeff, what you got going on?
Well, the same thing as you, man. We got Thunder God right down here. Thursdays, right down there. Make sure you guys check him out down below there. And otherwise, Whatnots. I got my big shows Friday, Sunday, and Monday, right after More You Know Mondays. Except for today.
Right. Hey, Thunder, what you got going on?
Nothing. Not a damn thing.
Okay.
Great sales pitch.
All
right.
Don't you guys do like a consensus thing and what you were reading, like after finding out, reading what those facts are, to like ask the chat, or do you guys have your opinion on, since we know that long drawn out battle of the rights of Superman, do you have one that you think would handle it better, or who would have been more in the right, or are you just laying it out there so people know?
We just put the facts out there. We let people make up their own minds and choices, and we can debate it within the chat if we'd like to. But otherwise, no, we don't give our opinions or biases on anything.
And what I do got all covered real quick is one time I did drop one link to the channel. Thursday is the only thing that I do have coming right now. I'm planning on doing one Thursday night. Hopefully these two guys will be there. But yeah, right now the thing is just trying to push for subs. And like I was saying, so if you haven't subbed up the channel, if you're watching this on the Rewind, I'm doing slab giveaways every time I reach another 10 subs. So, right here, I'm going to give this away, like I was saying, at 580. And then at 590, I'll give this away.
Oh, man.
And then right at 600, I'm going to give this Batman slab away. So each time we get there, they'll probably be giving away. And
Awesome.
these are probably given away on the auction show. So you want to tune in to, we did give away, because last week we gave away one slab.
Last week we gave away several things. I remember. I didn't, because I just don't really care. But
yeah, you definitely want to stick around. You never know. We're going to spin that wheel. Jeff always-
Definitely make sure you
Jeff
follow
always
Thunder
looking
there.
to give something away to somebody.
Hey, down in the description below is my link tree and Jeff's link tree. Y'all be sure and go sub up Jeff. We alternate every other week. Next week will be on Jeff's channel for More You Know Mondays. It could be any time between obviously 7:30 and 9 o'clock. But
Family.
we'll be posting that time. So you want to go
What's the
subscribe
topic
and hit that
next week, Jeff?
notifications bell so you'll know exactly when we're going to be doing this. And we always post stuff on IG. So go sub us up on IG. Go ahead, Thunder. What you saying?
I was asking Jeff, what's this topic for next week?
It's a history of Image Comics, how Image Comics got started.
Ooh.
Okay, yeah. that's good.
Ties into this quite nicely.
It does, because a lot of those guys had their own dealings of why they started their own, which, yeah, that could be interesting too. Image is almost like the godfather of what has become independence.
Yeah, I mean they definitely shook it up in a big way, and all with the groundwork laid by Siegel and Schuster. So it all ties together. Thank you again.
Like we were just saying, if those gentlemen had another avenue, you never know.
Yeah, they had other avenues. They just sucked.
Well, yeah.
All right, so we're gonna call it a night. Thank you all again. Like I said, we've given where you can find us anytime you need us. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and as always, remember, peace, love, and comics.
Comics.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you, Thunder. Thank you, everyone. See you later.
Thanks for having me, guys.